Day means Jerry Reynolds. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about as the Kings hit the Windy City to start a 4-game road trip. Ryan and Sacktown will join us as well. Then we got pre, halftime, and post-game all coming up for you today. Busy day right here on If You Don't Like That. And holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley, there he is, Jerry Reynolds. Jerry, how are you on this Wednesday?
Great, boy. Sunlight here in Roseville, California. Yep. Things drying out a little bit. Boy, it's just good to be a Kings fan living in good old Roseville.
Jerry, I know that a lot of coaches, yourself, front office people, you know, it's about winning. But if there's such a thing as a good loss, I thought the Kings had it against Milwaukee. There's nothing I can really fault about the last game they played against. I think a guy that is Jerry. I don't know if I've ever seen a player like Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's just he's hard to describe. And Jerry, you and I had the pleasure of announcing him several times courtside. He just kind of takes your breath away. But I was very impressed in the loss how well the Kings played.
I was too. You know, I mean, they went toe to toe with no question. They're the best team in the league right now.
Yep.
I think by quite a bit. And you know, as you said, Antetokounmpo, you know, I've never seen anything quite like him. You know, I always remember the first couple of years we saw him, you know, and he was just an emerging star. But we talked about it's like, my gosh, this guy's, you know, and I certainly didn't know that he'd become the best player in the world, which really he is, most valuable player in the world. But his athleticism and how hard he works and tries is just off the charts. You know, and he's my MVP and always has been. No disrespect to Jokic or Embiid or anybody else, but he's a two-way player and really outstanding both ways.
The Kings right now, they are playing with so much confidence, Jerry. You can see that. And I know they have that attitude that they can beat any team they play.
And they should. You know, I really, the more you watch the West, I don't think there's anybody. There's obviously teams that could beat them, but there's nobody they can't beat. That's for sure. Yeah, and that includes Denver. I mean,
they've lost 4 in a row. What the hell's going on with them?
Yeah, they don't look as focused. I think Coach Malone pointed it out, and that's one thing about this Kings team. And for the most part, since All-Star break, for sure, Coach Brown and his staff. I mean, this team has been ready to play. And they do what they do. Certainly, we know they're going to get scored on, but boy, they could score. And I think, you know, been so impressed with Coach Brown, you know, willing to push some buttons, you know, played Kessler Edwards big minutes when it counted against the Knicks and Phoenix and different things. So, you know, this team, lot to love.
There is, and they've been the healthiest team all year. They are. It's hard to believe the very few games they've missed due to player injuries. So that's pretty remarkable. You got the John Morant situation in Memphis. I still can't imagine him holding on to the number 2 spot. We don't know about Kevin Durant, when he's coming back, how he's going to be. You know, you always have the Lakers injuries who are playing well right now. Same thing with the Warriors who can't seemingly win on the road that much. You have the Clippers who, are they ever going to have a full roster? It seems like whenever you think everyone's going to be there, Kawhi doesn't play, Paul George doesn't play. You have Dallas. They've got injury problems. And then when Kyrie and Luka, Jerry, have been on the floor together, it hasn't really worked. So there's really no team in the West other than Sacramento that I can say right now, gee, they're playing really well and very consistently.
Yeah, they're the only team that you can count on when the game starts that pretty much their main guys are going to be playing. And as you said, I mean, that's the thing that's is scary, and it's also comforting for the Kings, is that these other teams with a lot of talent, Phoenix, Clippers, Warriors, they're still a little bit of disarray. You know, it's like the Warriors have been playing great, but then they can't win on the road, so they're not a real serious contender for anything till they prove they can win on the road. And certainly the Wiggins thing, who knows what that is. But as you pointed out, I mean, you know, with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, you'd think that team would be winning consistently. They're not. Dallas looks like they're in a free fall. I do think Minnesota is getting
Yep.
better and better, and I think they're getting better. And Phoenix, Durant. The thing that strikes me there, he's missed as many games in the last 4 years or more than Anthony Davis. He kind of gets a pass for that. I'm not blaming him, but it's hard. How can Phoenix really count on him for sure when a guy gets hurt in warm-up drill by himself?
Yep. I'm with you.
That's and I saw it. I mean, he got injured. I mean, I understand that he's hurt, but it's like, wow,
Yeah.
how fragile are you when that happens?
I want to get to this from Greg. John Morant is coming back March 20th. League suspended him 8 games, so he only misses the next 3. No, that's not accurate at all. He's not allowed to come back until March 20th, okay? That doesn't mean he is coming back March 20th. Don't think that just because, the league has now slapped a 8-game suspension. First of all, the league to me looks so bad once again on this. They look horrible. But that doesn't mean he's coming back March 20th. Nobody said he's coming back and he's going to be playing in the game on March 20th. So who knows when he's coming back?
Yeah, it's one of those things too. I mean, obviously there'll be a little bit of fitting in with his team and teammates whenever he does.
Yep.
There's no doubt he's a marvelous talent, but and I think the commissioner I thought was too slow about getting around to it. I don't really have any problem with the games or whatever because the way I look at it, 8 games and they're taking it out of his 182nd. That's 10% of his salary.
Yep.
So you're talking about $4 million. So anybody says that really wasn't a significant fine, I don't care who you are, that's going to get your attention.
Yeah, it is going to get the attention of Morant, and by all accounts, it seems like he understands he's got serious issues and he's working on them. So only time will tell. Again, there's a lot of reports also about you talked about Andrew Wiggins that there's, and again, I don't know what's true and what's not true. I'm just saying there's a lot of things circulating out there that he's not coming back this year. That would be a big blow to that team.
Yeah, I don't know how they can make a deep run without him. He's certainly their best really individual defender now that Draymond slipped a notch.
Yeah.
And Clay isn't quite the same defender. So, obviously he can score too. But so, that'll be a huge loss. And even if he were to come back with just a few games left before the playoffs, I'm not sure how you work that all out. But I will say one thing, that they've done a nice job, and I'm a little surprised Dante DiVincenzo has really started to fit into that
Yes.
that crew. And
Yes.
and he brings them what they really needed, just a tough-minded guard that'll go get rebounds, kind of a Josh Hart kind of player that really made the Knicks so much better.
Jerry, what has been your impression of Kessler Edwards?
Well, I've liked him. I think it's going to take a while, but he had the one really outstanding game. Then really, he's just been, you can't tell. But what he is a 6'8" athletic guy. Tries to defend. In other words, the Kings have really needed a big wing defender all year, and I know that's when Keegan Murray really was playing poorly, or kind of in what I call the Keegan walkabouts, which he kind of gets now and then.
Yeah.
That Kessler Edwards can provide a real spark there. I mean, not that he can also play behind Herder or Harrison Barnes a little too, but I guess my summation would be it's really a nice pickup. Don't know how it's all going to play out, but for Monty McNair and company, I think they did a great job basically getting him for nothing. And so it's all plus at this point.
All right, Chicago, Brooklyn, Washington, Utah. 3-1, you would take that right now before the first game starts, right? I would.
You're going on the road 3-1, absolutely. Yeah. And the
Yeah.
Kings obviously are one of the better road teams in the league. Those are all winnable games, certainly, but you always nobody wins them all on the road. I don't care. You'd have to go back to the Bulls 72-win Bulls or the 73-win Warriors to find a team that basically wins about all of them on the road.
This Kings team really should be better at home than they are. Their home road records are identical pretty much. The road is very impressive. We get that. But again, the home portion of their schedule to me has still been disappointing. As good as they are, I'm nitpicking a little bit here, but I'm trying to make a point. You would think that a team that is third in the West would have a better record at home. Particularly, it's not like Charlotte. Okay, what I'm saying is where you walk in and it's like a library. Okay, the place is full every night. There's good atmosphere. The home court record to me is disappointing.
I agree. I mean, that's one of the, it's one of those things too. How many bad first quarters have they had at home?
Yep.
I mean, I think it's almost maybe too much of a comfort zone. The guys coming out thinking about the crowd will pick them up, and well, the crowd does try to, but you can't play for them. And I think the guys have really, they've lost several games in the first quarter, just haven't dig out of too big a hole. They've been able to dig out of some of them, but I don't. That's hard to figure, and they need to get better at that. They really do, and I think lately we've seen them as a better home team lately since the All-Star break for sure.
All right, you talked about Denver a moment ago, but I want to get more into them. They've lost 4 in a row. Michael Malone came down on them after the game last night, called them soft, blah, blah, blah. We've heard people talk about, gee, they're bored. I don't really buy into that. I've never heard that about the Bulls. I didn't hear about, when the Kings were winning 60-plus games, they didn't go on 4-game losing streaks and people were saying they were bored. You know what I'm saying? Is there more to it than that, Jerry?
There could be. I do think I don't think they're a good defensive team, and that's certainly not. Michael Malone's a terrific defensive coach, but
Yep.
I think he's obviously got some guys. I think that other than maybe Aaron Gordon, I'm not sure who you could say is above average defender on that starting unit, and Porter, and Porter's well below average. I mean, so overall, I mean, if you just look at their starting unit and say, who's a good defender, and then you can't hardly find one. Jokic is average maybe because of his instincts and all. So to me, that's their weakness. They're
Yep.
not a particularly good defensive team.
I don't pay any attention to whether a coach is a good defensive coach or not. It doesn't mean a damn thing to me. Mike Brown's a defensive coach. Anybody out there see the Kings playing defense? Michael Malone preaches defense. That's what he is. As you said, the Nuggets. So, to me, if you don't have good defensive players, I don't give a damn who your coach is.
No. At some point, that's who guards people is the players. And as you pointed out, I mean, Mike Brown, obviously, that's certainly Michael Malone. We know Michael Malone. That's his focus. It goes back to his dad. Certainly knows all there is to know about it and the different schemes. But you trot out a bunch of guys there who can't guard anybody. Don't be surprised if they don't guard anybody.
You know that feeling very well, don't you?
I have been there.
In all fairness, and you've talked about this, you know what you have and what you don't have. And you've said this a couple times before. Put your best 5 offensive players out on the floor and go out and outscore people, right?
Yeah, I think that's where I think that's where Mike Brown was really smart early on. I mean, he made sure, okay, I think we're going to have a problem defensively. I'm not sure, but we got some guys that can score. Let's come up with a scheme and a strategy to do that, and they have. And like I've said before, I think their transition offense, and I mean that's after made back. I have never seen a team play up tempo so well because they're into the other team's defense before they can get set. Mm-hmm. And that's, to me, that may be the most important part of it. And then of course the unselfishness that we see with this team. And I think a lot of that goes to the coach, but also goes a lot to Sabonis. But that ball, there's not a selfish guy on the team. And the bench comes in and plays unselfishly, more so than any team in the league. I'm convinced of that.
You mentioned Sabonis. He is as consistent as any player that I can remember the Kings having, and that's saying something. They've had some pretty good guys down low, Chris Webber, for instance, but man, where would you put him right now? You've watched him play now for a full season, last season, since February. Now we're in March. Where would you rank him right now? Where would you put him up there when you talk about all the players that have played those positions with the Kings?
Well, I think other than Webber, you wouldn't put anybody ahead of him. And I mean, Weber was more talented than Sabonis, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But Chris didn't play as consistently
No,
well as Sabonis,
no.
and really, I don't think the Kings have had a player that plays as hard consistently with effort and stamina and stuff that he
I
does.
agree.
I mean, I not just big player, any player, and I think that's his. That's why he puts up the numbers he does. He's putting up numbers that only the very gifted
Yeah.
guys could get, and he really isn't totally gifted. He's fundamental. He's tough. He's smart, and yeah,
Hey,
he's special. There's no
yeah,
doubt.
and Chris had a lot of baggage with him. He had that persona, and you know this, Jerry. There was basically a different set of rules for him, and he could do what he wanted. And Sabonis is more of a he fits in. You know what I mean? Like he's not a guy that needs to draw attention to himself. I guess that's the best way I can say it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, really, what he is, he's Scott Pollard with a whole lot of talent comparatively.
Right.
I mean, he brings a hard at. He's tough. He's fearless, unselfish. But, obviously he can do a lot of things that Scott dreams about doing, yeah, King's, he's a difference maker. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff from the fans chiming in. We got Ryan in Sacktown as well, who's going to be doing the pregame show. He'll join me at halftime and postgame as well. Ryan, how are you today, buddy?
Doing great, Grant. How you guys doing?
We're doing good. You take 3-1 right now before they throw the ball up to start this game in Chicago?
Where do I sign?
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure that we're all on the same page. This is a game that we look at this road trip. This is one of the games, right? Washington's one of the games, and then split between Brooklyn and Utah, right? Would we say this is one of the 4 games that we have them no ifs, ands, or buts about winning?
Yeah, I absolutely think this is one they've got to come out strong, especially coming off the loss to Milwaukee. And, the way these two teams set up, this is set up for a win with the Kings as long as they come out and play the game that they normally play.
Obviously the big story.
Yeah, this is a bit of a scary team, because of the 3 guys. They've got 3 guys that can all put up big numbers.
Yes,
and
they
if
do.
I've watched them. They'll generally win. Now, the truth is, the reason they're where they are is almost never do those 3 have good games at the same time, and I think that's where the Kings really have an advantage. I'm not sure they can get 120 points, and I'm pretty sure the Kings can.
And Jerry, you talk about Chicago, and they were counting on a lot from Lonzo Ball, and with this 3rd surgery now, I wonder if his career is in jeopardy.
Oh, it has to be. I mean, you got to be scared to death of it, and you go back to the Bulls when he got hurt last year. I think about 35, 40 games in, they were one of the best teams in the league.
Yep.
And he was playing terrific. I mean, he's one of those guys that probably wasn't quite what people expected when he came out of the end of the draft, with the Lakers, but was getting better, making threes, and they just haven't been able to replace him at all. And not just his leadership, his 3-point shooting, and really he was an excellent defender.
Yes, he was,
and an unselfish guy on basically a team, in my opinion, that's very selfish.
All right, Ryan, let's get a total now. Let's have some fun. The Kings are at 40. What do you think their win total is going to be when the 82 games are in the books?
Grant, I think, assuming they do go 3-1 on this road trip, I do think they'll win against Boston. Boston's not playing great right now, and I think they're going to flirt with 50. I think ultimately they end up with 49.
All right, Jerry, what do you think?
I had them at 48. I'll stay there. I think, I hope Ryan's right, but I think 48's my number.
What is going on with Boston, Jerry? Have you watched them play much?
I have. I think it's a case maybe as much as anything to where they have started thinking they're really good, and they are really good, but you don't want to let yourself think that. And they've kind of several games have gotten themselves in a big hole, just kind of trotting out there, and we'll get this going here pretty soon. But I still believe they're a real contender. I like Milwaukee better, but I wouldn't be surprised if they won it all. I mean, they're good enough too. So, I think at some point, they'll they'll get it back together.
All right. Now we look at the standings. To me, barring a catastrophic injury or injuries, because I think it would take more than just one at this point, the Kings are either going to finish second or third in the West. Okay. Here are the teams that are lurking around 6 and 7 right now. That would be Phoenix, Golden State, the Clippers, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Dallas, the Lakers. And the reason why I'm mentioning all of those teams, okay, the Suns have 32 losses, and the Lakers, who are currently 10th, have 35 losses. So that combination could change considerably. But again, I don't see the Kings guys, Ryan, I don't see how they would fall any lower than 3 right now. They've got a 5-game cushion in the loss column over fourth place Phoenix. They're not going to lose 5 games, okay, at this juncture of the season, unless 3 or 4 players go down with injuries.
Yeah, Grant, I don't see him falling below 3. Golden State's making a run right now at the 5 seed, playing decent basketball. But yeah, I think that's where they ultimately end up. And, you know, the 2 teams that you mentioned that scare me the most out of that group are the Warriors and also excuse me for a second.
The Lakers?
I forget. The Lakers scare me and the Suns. That's what I was going to say. The
All right.
Suns scare me a lot.
Okay, well, the Lakers and the Warriors have now won 7 out of 10 games. I would not want to take on a healthy Lakers team in the first round of the playoffs. I think that would be a daunting task. And if the Warriors are healthy, and that means having Wiggins back on the floor, that would be a very challenging series if Steph Curry is healthy. The thing that is so puzzling, and we've talked about this, is the Warriors home and on the road. At home, they're 29-7, and on the road, they're 7-26. But this is a team that won the finals last year. They've got rings all over the place. I'm not sure that would be a matchup that anybody would be licking their chops to have, either the Warriors or the Lakers. And both of those are realistic possibilities in the first round. Jerry, you wouldn't want to have to play them.
I think those. Yeah, I think you need to be a little scared of them. And you know, and to the Warriors, you made a great point on their road record. I think the thing that scares me about them, besides the fact they're defending champions and they got the heart of champions, they've proven that. Even without Wiggins, they may get Peyton back or whatever. But the road record is the road record. But I'm not sure they would count playing the Kings on the road as a road.
Right.
You know, it's just too much, too handy, too familiar. And so to me, that's almost, you know, both teams. It goes for both teams. Those are kind of like basically home games. So because the fans are going to be there for both places. And but the team I want them to play is Dallas. that's the matchup I want to see in the first round. I don't know if they're going to get there because I don't think they're very good.
Okay.
You know, I think with Irving and Doncic hurt now, but even when they're playing, they're both great offensive players, but they don't make each other necessarily better. And the rest of their teammates really aren't very good. I mean, I just think on a talent basis, they were better last year, you know, not just because of certainly Brunson fit better with Doncic than does Irving. And then, you know, they had Dorian Finney-Smith. They had better complementary guys, you know, and they got to the Western Finals, but that I don't believe that team is capable of that. And, you know, they may prove it, but you know, to me, the Warriors and Lakers are scarier because just of potential talent.
Yeah. Ryan, I'd be fine with the Kings matching up against the Clippers, against the Timberwolves. And, you know, Oklahoma City is an intriguing team. When Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is on the floor, they're a dynamic team, and they're starting to move up the standings. They're 8th right now. Think about that. So, hey, but here's the other issue. You play 82 games for a reason, and this season still has one more chapter to write in terms of the end of the regular season, and then we get into the real playoffs. But the Kings are on a fluke. Like what they've done, you know, I don't think there are a lot of teams right now licking their chops saying, boy, we can't wait to play Sacramento. I really mean that. You know?
Yeah, no, Grant, I think the opinions changed since the All-Star break, and granted, things have lined up for the Kings since the All-Star break with a lot of stars out, but they've taken advantage of those opportunities. And now you're seeing them trying to getting more in tune and really fine touching what they're doing and coming together. And that was a big thing with the Milwaukee game, right? I think we learned more about the Kings in that Milwaukee game and a loss than we learned about them in most of the wins this season.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Isn't that true, Jerry? I mean, we always talk about, who you don't want to play, who you don't want to play. I'm not sure there are too many teams right now going, oh, boy, we just can't wait to play Sacramento. I know we heard that from the Lakers a couple of weeks ago, but, I mean, again, I think if the Lakers are healthy, and that's a huge if, there are a lot of teams that probably would be skeptical about playing them in the first round, but there aren't teams out there that are dying to play the Kings right now. The Kings have shown they're the real deal.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think most teams, I think the coaches of those teams are saying, okay, these guys, unless we can score 120, 25, we're going to have a tough time.
Mm-hmm.
Or unless we can really slow the pace down, which is also very difficult to do with this team. So you got to figure out, okay, we know they're not good defensively, but we still got to get 125 to beat them. And because they're going to get their 120 plus because they're that good. And the only other chance, okay, is there some way we can slow the game down? And there's most teams that might take them out of their own game. So I like, pace. And Coach Brown and these guys are they're going to go get their 120 every night.
Jerry, we talk about up and coming teams. I'm telling you, the Oklahoma City Thunder, I think, are going to be where the Kings are next year. They get their Holmgren, all right, who's been out all year. They've got draft picks coming out through the walls. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They're set up to be one of those teams, aren't they?
They really are. Gilgeous-Alexander's, you can put him in the top 10 easy of all the players in this league. I mean, and the Kings have been lucky so far. They've never had to play against him recently, But Josh Giddey is a big time point guard. The guy really is 6'8", can make plays. He went for a triple double. To me, he's a lot like Tyrese Halliburton. He's not quite the shooter, but really as a playmaker, he's probably the equal. So they got a 6'8" point guard, and of course Lou Dortz or whatever his name is.
Dort.
I mean, that's a tough buckaroo, boy. And you're right. I mean. And maybe is important. They've got a terrific general manager. Sam Presti will utilize all those picks very wisely one way or another. My guess is he won't want to take them. He'll want to maybe use some of those picks to go get a young veteran player to add to the mix.
All right, don't forget, Ryan's going to be coming on the pregame show 30 minutes before tip-off, and then he'll be joining me at halftime and postgame tonight. If you are new, do us a favor, please subscribe, hit the like button, the thumbs up. We would greatly appreciate that, and we appreciate New Works Plumbing of Sacramento. Locally owned for over 20 years, New Works has a fix for you. Just go to sacserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you, and remember, they're available if you have an emergency in the middle of the night with their 24/7 service. New Works Plumbing, sacserviceplumbing.com. They've got a fix for you. And as we pointed out last week, that doesn't mean they're available for Jerry's emergencies in the middle of the night, okay? They're just wanted to add in there.
No, they would. They'd come. They'd be available. I know that. They make no exceptions.
Oh, my gosh. All right, Rhino, what do you think the final score is tonight? Let's have some fun here. How many points you think the Kings score?
I think the Kings will probably be in the 120s. I'm going to say about 125. I know Jared just mentioned as long as the Kings get their 125. The Bulls, they don't take a lot of threes. In fact, they're 30th in the league at threes, but they take a lot of twos. They're 6th in the league. So that's a recipe for kind of the Kings getting into a more fast-paced game if the Bulls aren't shooting well from beyond the arc. So 125.
Jerry, how do you like my boy here, all prepared, doing his homework, has all the numbers down? That's pretty impressive, isn't it?
That's pretty impressive. I mean, my gosh, I feel a little ashamed of myself. I really, he's prepared and I'm not.
Hey, the one thing, hey, Ryan, you know what's funny? The one thing I love about Jerry, because Jerry and I are very similar, we don't really, and again, I understand we're kind of old fashioned this way, but when Jerry and I did games, we weren't throwing a lot of stats down your your throat. You know what I mean? We were like,
Yep.
and again, the Kings for many years were so bad, we didn't want to give people the stats and the numbers. Okay. But we would just like roll out the ball, talk about the game. And see, that would never come from Jerry, those type of numbers that you just gave me, right, Jerry?
No. I mean, I believed in the old eye test. I thought I knew what I was seeing, and I'd talk about it.
Well, whatever you guys were doing was working, so I think we're good.
Yeah, it worked there, didn't it, Jerry? It absolutely did. I'm so, and Jerry, I know I speak for Jerry here. We're so happy for the fans. This long wait that is finally almost over. Think about how long ago 2006 was. I mean, think about, can you even remember what the hell you were doing in 2006? I'm so happy for the fans, and you can see the enthusiasm and you can feel the passion. And, again, not to be self-serving here, but when we get 30,000 people watching a post-game show, I mean, that's just a big time wow. And as we get closer to the playoffs and the playoffs build, this is going to be unfreaking believable because, Jerry, for the people that haven't watched the Kings in the playoffs, you remember when it was the Jazz and there was the Raz the Jazz towels out and Raz the Jazz T-shirts and all of that, and then it became the Mavs and the Lakers. I mean, those are experiences that a lot of the Kings fans don't know anything about because they weren't alive.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, and it's so encouraging now that they'll get that opportunity, because there really is. I don't think there's another place in the NBA that has the true enthusiasm for the team the same way that the people are in their seats when the game starts. They're pulling for the team when the game starts, as opposed to kind of sauntering in mid first quarter, maybe, and that sort of thing, and really involved in the game.
Yeah,
it's really more of a college atmosphere, which is special, and yeah, that's this fan base it truly deserves it. Obviously we had those 8 great years. Of playoff basketball. Boy, 16 years between that's been tough because even you and I remember the 96 series where the Kings had not been in 10 years, but because 10 years
it was the first playoff game in that building, the new Arco 2. That was the first playoff game. There was nothing like that. That scene was unbelievable. Jerry, I got one for you. This I'm really getting a kick out of this one. Okay. Connor just sent us a message about ready to hop on my old bicycle and ride down the road to the United Center. Looking forward to seeing the Kings fan live. Well, Connor, I don't know how long you've been in Chicago before, but you would have been riding your bicycle to the game when they played at the same location back when it was Chicago Stadium. Frank, this is one of the best lines in the history of sports. When Frank Layden was coaching the Utah Jazz, he called the walk from the bus to the locker room at Chicago Stadium the toughest 10 yards in basketball. Okay. That area around Chicago Stadium was so bad. I mean, you wouldn't be riding your bicycle down there in the 80s. I can tell you that, Jerry.
Well, you might ride it down there, but you wouldn't find your bicycle afterwards or be able to. It wouldn't be there. So yeah, that was that time, in the middle 80s, that was pretty much strong gang territory. And fortunately, with the new building, the buses could back right in there. So but that was ride careful, Connor. That's all I can tell you, buddy.
Yeah, unless you were allowed to take your bike into the old Chicago Stadium, your bike was not going to be there when you left. Okay, and then you had the challenge of actually, if your bike was there by some miracle, getting home. That area, I'll never forget the first time I did a game at Chicago Stadium, and I heard all about this, and I got on the bus early, and I was only there were a few other people on the bus outside Chicago Stadium, and there was a police chase, and we actually got sideswiped by a car trying to evade police around Chicago Stadium. And then the following year, we had to do an extended post game for some reason. And Ted Green, who was my analyst back then, we missed the bus, and it was freezing, and we're standing outside, outside of Chicago Stadium, trying to figure out if there was taxis or anything, because we didn't know. And a police car came up to us, said, "Can I help you?" And we explained the situation, and he said, you really shouldn't be standing outside. You should try to figure out if you can get back into the building until you can get a ride. We go, well, we can't. We're locked out. I mean, seriously. Okay. That's how bad it was, I'm not making this story up.
No, I mean, I understand that. Yeah, it was pretty rough territory back then. And like I say, if that Connor's going to ride his bike home, I'd suggest kind of getting kind of making sure you look like Pancho Villa or something.
Yep.
Get strapped pretty good.
All right. So you remember this game, right, Jerry? 2009. To this day, it's one of my favorite games that I've ever broadcast. And what we witnessed down 35 points in the third quarter. And I'll never forget this, Ryan, because they made a little video about this. When the Kings were down 35, Paul Westphal called a timeout. And I said to Jerry, Jerry, if you're coaching the team right now, what are you telling the guys? He goes, I'm telling them, don't look at the scoreboard. Just go out and play. It doesn't exist. And when Paul Westphal was asked after the game what he said during that timeout, he said, don't worry about the score. Don't even worry about the scoreboard. Just go out and play. I thought that was amazing that they had, coaches think alike. The good old Paul, rest his soul, miss him every day.
Yeah. Special man. And, there's something on TV I saw the other day, and they're talking about greatest comeback in history was 28 points in the third quarter. And I said, don't you guys do any research? No, it was 35, right. and we were witnesses to it. And I always remember the key guy probably in that comeback was Ime Udoka.
That's exactly right.
He had about 3 or 4 threes. It's probably never first time in his career. Of course, that's how those things happen. But yeah,
and then
that'll go down.
And Tyreek took over the game at the end.
The most remarkable game I've seen.
Tyreek took over the game at the end. What Tyreek did on the last couple of possessions was unbelievable. They couldn't stop him. They had no answer for him. But you're right about Ime Udoka. He hit some big corner threes in that game. And to this day, and I'm always asked, what's my favorite game I've ever announced? And I really believe this, and I don't grade myself or whatever, but I still believe that's the best fourth quarter I've ever announced in my life. Jerry and I felt something special going on, and the crowd went from going crazy to being kind of in shock. Vinny Del Negro was coaching the Bulls that game. It was very interesting. The very next game, the Bulls did that to their opponent. The Bulls were down huge, and they came back and did the exact same. I think there was the Knicks, if I'm not mistaken. So on any given night, we always talk about that. But, Jerry, we could sense what was going on, and to be a part of that, that's still truly one of my favorite games I've ever done.
Oh, yeah. I always say you can sense the momentum switch. And now you don't know it's going to end like it did. I didn't know they were going to be able to catch and win. But yeah, when that's the NBA. You see it about every night on lesser levels. But that was the ultimate momentum switch because the Bulls were a good team. They were a playoff
Yes, they
team.
were.
And I always felt bad for Vinny Del Negro because I think that game had a lot to do with him not being retained.
He got screwed.
He had a winning record there, but that's the way it goes.
Yep. Ryan, Jerry probably knew exactly how to answer that because he was coaching a lot of games with the Kings where that's what he had to tell his guys. Guys, just forget about the score. Just go out and play.
Hey, I said that at the start of the game.
hey guys, let's go. The final huddle after the lineups. All right, guys, just forget about the score. Just go out and play.
Don't even look up there. Don't even look up.
Oh my God. Hey, you don't get this type of programming anywhere else on the internet. Only right here on If You Don't Like That. Okay.
Right here. Subscribe.
Yes. Subscribe is exactly right. Oh, well, on that note, I think we should wrap it up. Ryan, have yourself a good pregame, and then you'll be joining me at halftime and postgame. Looking forward to that.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you so much too, bud.
Jerry?
Thank you, guys.
You take care, okay?
I will, and be watching you guys. You make me proud. Make me proud.
Hey, Ryan, where do you get that type of analysis anywhere else? Okay.
It's you two are the best. You guys are beauties. My goodness.
Hey, I miss doing the games with that guy so much. The things that we would talk about. Oh my gosh. I used to say that to the guys before the game. How classic is that?
I can't imagine working alongside him. I wouldn't be able to keep a straight face. I just wouldn't be able to do
Oh
it.
my gosh. Oh wow. All right, Rhino. Have a good show, buddy, and we'll talk to you at halftime.
All right, thanks, Dapes.
All right. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. How fun is that, huh? Really appreciate everyone joining us here. And again, if you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. All right. We will be back again, halftime, post game, halftime. We got it all, pregame. We got it all. Ryan's ready to roll, man. We love that. Thanks for joining us right here on If You Don't Like That. Bye-bye, everybody.